what he said at the end with the last three? God bless you. These are theocrats. Let me be very clear about what we just heard. This has been litigated. The Fifth Amendment applies to the United States. The reason we needed a 14th Amendment is because guess who wasn't included in the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution, or the Constitution, as full humans, African people, and indigenous people. The 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution is when the concept of citizenship was codified. This is the point she was making. So people talking about people here illegally, people here illegally. MF, you're the first one that came here illegally, you bastard, but there was no citizenship rule. You took this land from the indigenous people and then wrote a document that did not establish a rule excluding people on the concept of citizenship, only on the concept of humanity, which you claim for yourself, and created a legal universe that excluded everybody but white people. And white people was to be determined by you, as the Irish in the 19th century. Anyway, the point is this. The 14th Amendment, after a bloody civil war, and perhaps we're on the verge of another one, who knows? But the point is this, the 14th Amendment came in to codify who was or wasn't a citizen. And while the Fifth Amendment, as she said, reads that no shall any person be subject to the same offense to be put twice in jeopardy of life or limb, that's double jeopardy, nor shall be compared in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. It said person, not citizen. Now let's go to the 14th Amendment, which was passed because the Dred Scott decision said in 1857 that black people had no rights that any white person was bound to respect, because if in Massachusetts they decided to give you citizenship, that was fine. If in Texas they decided not to, that was fine. Because as Africans, we weren't part of the legal universe. The 14th Amendment was passed for that reason. Now, the clown now thinks it only applies to black people, but it should shut his damn mouth. Now, the point is this, finally, the 14th Amendment, Section 1. All persons born and naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state in which they reside. That is a direct shot at Roger Taney, who said that you're a citizen of a state and the United States. He made up a legal fiction of federal citizenship, as if you can be a citizen of the United States and there's some place where it's not subject to the polity or the jurisdiction of the United States. But that's fine. They cured it there. But the problem, what they're going after birthright citizenship for is the second part of that first sentence, which says subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It's a lie. The Kim Wong-Ark case settled that. That was a guy who was born in San Francisco, whose parents had come from China, and he is one of the few people in the United States Supreme Court history who has his name in a decision. If somebody said, you're not a citizen, he said, my name Kim Wong-Ark. The Supreme Court said I was a citizen, didn't stop when he went to El Paso, Texas a few years later. Them crackers down there arrested him and accused him of not being a citizen, and it took him months to prove he was, with a Supreme Court with his name, case with his name on it in his back pocket. But the important, and here is the important sentence in the 14th Amendment. It says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States, same as the Fifth Amendment, nor shall any state deprive any person, not citizen, person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That's the due process clause. But here's the problem. Well, we just heard this white nationalist, God bless you, you can put the whole Constitution. In other words, who gonna check me, as you always say, Reese? The problem is this, what these white boys are trying to do, white boys and girls, they want judges to say in the 14th Amendment and in the Fifth Amendment, well, the 14th Amendment is the important one here because that's the citizenship clause. When they said person, they meant citizens. When people say, no, they said persons, they said, no, go back to Section 1 at the beginning. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to jurisdiction thereof. There's enough air in there for the right-wing judge to say, yeah. So the interpretation I'm going to give, this is what they teach in law school when they start talking about statutory interpretation. I interpret person in that second sentence to mean citizen, as it is should be controlled by the first sentence. It's a fringe argument. It never had any breath in it. But because you Negroes decided that elections don't matter, and then because the Democratic Party does silly things, like let people die in office. You know, the last 8 members of the federal legislature, 7 in the House and 1 in the Senate, that died in office, all of them was Democrats, 215 to 214 last election. Connolly of Virginia, you got Grijalva of Arizona, Sylvester Turner in Texas, and before that, Pascrell of New Jersey, Jackson Lee of Texas, Payne of New Jersey, Feinstein of California, Senator Feinstein, and McEachin of Virginia. Everybody died in office. It got close enough to steal, and now we got to go on this hell ride together. Jasmine Crockett can't explain this to them any clearer, but they don't care. They don't care. The law is whatever the hell the judge says it is. And if you don't agree with the judge don't agree with you, and you're the president of the United States, you know what they can do? They can ignore the law, and we're going to be in the streets. This is a serious thing now.
You don't need to be a writer to publish books and audiobooks